Aloha and welcome to Action Island. I am Gilles Gallant. I am joined by Nick Giffen, Grant Neiffer, and Kyle Murray. We're here for a special Thanksgiving edition of Action Island. We're going to build a Turkey Day parlay that we could sweat all day while we ignore our families. Of course, the three games that are on the slate, we've got Packers Lions to start us off, followed by Chiefs Cowboys and Bengals Ravens. This might be one of the better Thanksgiving slates we've seen in a few years. So we're going to build a four-leg parlay for the day. So all of our picks today, we're each going to give two bets, but they're going to be from any of the three games. We're not going to do a same game parlay unless the picks follow that way, but most of these picks are going to be from the three games. So here's how it works. The four of us, we give our two favorite bets for the games. Then we're going to take a vote on those picks to decide which parlay leg will stay or which one is going to be kicked off the island. By the end of the show, we'll have a four-leg parlay for Thanksgiving. Now, as we give out these picks, all of our picks are going to be in the YouTube chat with quick slip links. We're going to be dropping those links in the YouTube chat. That'll help you bet these lines faster, get to the sports book a little quicker so you can get the best price and the best number. So use those links if you want to tail these bets. So Kyle, you're up first. You've got two props, and thankfully you didn't do it from the same game. You chose two different games. So what are we doing?
Yeah, first leg I'm looking at is Patrick Mahomes over 21.5 rushing yards. Obviously, this year we've seen Mahomes kind of take things more under his own belt, right, and take off more on the ground. Obviously, their running back room has been revolving doors of aging veterans, and obviously a lot of injury is being dealt with behind him in the backfield. So we've seen him take off quite a bit this year. He's averaging nearly 29 rushing yards per game, 28.8 on the season. He's cleared 28 rushing yards in four of his last six games. And now we get some matchup here against Dallas, who's allowing the most rush attempts to opposing quarterbacks and the third most rushing yards per game to the position. So I think this is more of a spot where I do think Mahomes is going to continue to look to make plays on his own account here. When you look at the pass rate over expectation for Kansas City, they're the most pass-heavy team in football. They've been doing so all year, obviously letting Mahomes really do his own thing back there, and I think that will lead to more scramble opportunities for Mahomes. So I'm taking the over here at 21.5, as we have this one projected right around 26 in the Roto Grinders NFL model.
Yeah, it's interesting with Mahomes and specifically the Cowboys defense that have now focused to more of a run heavy defense with the trades to those defensive tackles, but also just the opposing quarterbacks that they've faced this year, like Jalen Hurts twice. They've faced Justin Fields, just a lot of scrambling opportunities so far. So it'll be interesting to see how Mahomes attacks this defense, given that it's really hard to run up the middle at this stage. So Patrick Mahomes over 21.5 rushing yards. That's the first prop that Kyle likes from Cowboys Chiefs. What's the second one?
Yeah, I'm actually going to a pick for a game that I'll be in attendance at. I'm taking the under
Nice.
in the Lions game here, which is going to be really fun to sweat an under live in action. I just apparently love to give myself a good time. So we're taking Dave Montgomery under 37.5 rushing yards. I mean, we see what Jahmyr Gibbs continues to do week in and week out. He's one up, if not the most explosive players in the NFL. The Lions should continue to look to get him the ball. I made a joke last week that, Dave Montgomery should just be holding a clipboard on the sideline. And that's no shade towards Dave Montgomery. I think he's a great player in his own account, but Jahmyr Gibbs is just so dynamic. He's easily the most explosive player for this Lions team. And we've seen that sort of transpire in the touches over the last couple weeks. Just 11 carries in the last two games, five and then six for David Montgomery. It's also a bad matchup for him here as well. Packers allowing just 3.89 yards per carry and allowing just the fifth lowest explosive run percentage this year. So I'm not expecting a ton of volume for David Montgomery. And when he does get touches, I'm not expecting a ton of efficiency. And when I think about Montgomery and where he's going to be involved, it's more so going to be these short yardage situations. So again, not expecting a ton of consistent efficiency from Montgomery. So give me the under on 37.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, the lack of explosives by that Packers defense has really been something that we've been targeting just throughout the year. And then, of course, uh, Gibbs has just been so awesome. And the other thing, too, with Dan Campbell taking over play calling, just a lot more pass attempts
Yep.
in general, so that could just lead to less rushing attempts for somebody like David Montgomery. So, all right, Grant, Nick, we got to take a vote here. Are we going to take Patrick Mahomes to go over 21.5 rushing yards, or are we going to fade David Montgomery and take under 37.5 rush yards? So let's take a vote. right, Grant, Nick. I voted for Mahomes. I went with Mahomes in this one. I just I know what we got here. Okay, a picture of Mahomes and what did Monty? Okay, uh, Nick, you got outvoted here, so we are going to go with Patrick Mahomes 20, over 21 and a half rushing yards. But I guess the question I wanted to ask is, what was the reasoning in voting for Montgomery over Mahomes?
Yeah, twofold. First, you'll see from my pick for the Detroit game, it'll correlate strongly with my pick.
Hmm.
But also, it's me against the field here, and Kyle and I we agree 85-90% of the time, but I'm actually on Mahomes under here. So yeah, that like you mentioned, Gilles, Mahomes has faced or not Mahomes, the uh,
Cowboys defense,
Cowboys have faced Jalen Hurts twice, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix,
Justin
right?
Fields.
Justin Fields. They faced a ton of scrambling quarterbacks. And when we actually adjust their scramble rate for the quarterbacks they faced, they're fifth lowest in the NFL in quarterback adjusted scramble rate. And they allow the fifth most kneel downs. And Patrick Mahomes is a very
Yeah.
negative yard kneel down guy.
That's the part where you'll probably get crushed if we take the over on that, Kyle. That's probably how we'll get crushed. We'll get to the 19 yards now because he'll have 22 yards and lose 3 yards on that last kneel down as they beat the Cowboys, a double whammy to my heart. So, all right though, but still, we do trust in Mahomes. At least most of us do to take his over rushing yards prop. So we're going to take that as the first leg of the Thanksgiving parlay, over 21 and a half rushing yards. And of course, you had the other pick of David Montgomery under 37 and a half rushing yards. But if you want to tail either of those bets, quick slip links are dropped now in the YouTube chat. We now move to Grant. Grant, I know that you crush touchdown props. I'm not sure if you're going with touchdown props today, though. I know that you'll probably be betting some, but from what I see, I'm looking at some yardage props. What are we looking at?
Yeah, I've got some ladders going for tomorrow's game. The first one, absolute banger. Mark Andrews, 50 plus receiving yards. You can go 60 plus, you can go 70 plus, you can go 80. I hit him all the way up to 100, but I just put 50 plus in here. It'd be a little bit more conservative. He's going up against the Bengals, and I don't know how I can properly convey how bad they've been versus tight ends this season. 13 touchdowns given up. The second closest is seven. 960 yards, more than 160 yards more than the next closest team. 31% of opposing teams' targets are going to tight ends. So 31% of the targets that Baltimore may have should go to the tight ends if historically accurate, but probably more than that because they like to use their tight ends a lot. This game has a high total. It has a 7-point spread. So hopefully the Bengals end up keeping it close. I think they do. So huge shootout potential, and we've seen Bengals Ravens the last few times be massive scoring games. So Mark Andrews, 50 plus receiving yards at plus 182 over at FanDuel right now is far too high a line. And then the second one I have, go another alt pick, 300 plus passing yards for Jordan Love. You can get him at around 450 plus 475 right in there. But I know he has not been great all season long, or at least since the beginning of the season. He's had little random good games. They don't like to pass the ball a ton. They obviously want to run. But Detroit historically been a big pass funnel defense. I know it hasn't been the same this year. They're sitting right around the middle of the pack in terms of pass rate against at 60%. But still, they should grade out as more of a pass against them team. And they're playing in a dome. We've seen so many times Detroit games in Detroit just be massive games. We've seen it over and over again for years and years and years. This is a divisional game. We saw last week Winston put up a massive game. So I think Jordan Love probably puts up a high game here. There is some potential for some downside considering a lot of his wide receivers are injured. We don't know who exactly is going to play at this point, but they have so much depth. They should be able to get out some competent guys there. But Jordan Love, 300 plus pass yards at plus 475 is just far too high.
Yeah, and so I guess with Jordan Love, the one thing that I'm more curious about is how healthy is Josh Jacobs going to be? Because if he's still a little banged up as well, then that's going to affect the run game, maybe more pass attempts on that front for Jordan Love as well. And then Mark Andrews, I mean, the Bengals just stink versus tight ends. There's no real other way to describe it. And I think as well, because of Burrow coming back, that could push that defense to have, or the Ravens offense rather, to have to keep scoring, and then you could get more targets for Andrews. So yeah, 50 plus receiving yards feels very doable. So Nick, Kyle, we got to take a vote. Are we going to take Mark Andrews to have 50 plus receiving yards against that Bengals defense, or are we going to take Jordan Love to light it up 300 passing yards? That's around plus 475. So let's take a vote on the second leg of the Thanksgiving parlay. All right, guys, I voted for Mark Andrews. What did you guys do? Andrews, love. Okay. All right, Nick, you are dissenting at an alarming rate today. Okay, so Mahomes you don't like, and okay, so I guess the question I would ask is, do you just not like Mark Andrews, or do you prefer the Jordan Love prop more? Because Mahomes, it sounds like you were looking at an under.
Yeah, I like both of these. But I just have more value on the Jordan Love plus 475 number
Yeah.
in my model. I'm getting this closer to like 3-1. And if we look at, kind of the coverages that Detroit tends to throw, they play around 40% man coverage. Jordan Love destroys man coverage. So, we could see some long bombs to Watson, or we could see, but just a bunch of passing, as Grant mentioned, with Detroit just being a high potency offense and indoors as well here. So I love the big number we're getting here on 300 plus passing yards.
Well, and it is interesting too that we voted for Andrews. We got it at like around plus 180 right now. If you look at his anytime touchdown prop, it's like plus 110. So yeah, I feel much better about taking the receiving yards angle than if we bet on his anytime touchdown in this spot. But yeah, so Mark Andrews is now going to be the second leg of the parlay. We're going to pair that with Patrick Mahomes over 21 and a half rushing yards, Mark Andrews 50 plus receiving yards. Quick slip links are dropped in the YouTube chat. Now, Nick, before we get to your picks, it's that time of year. We got a great deal on Action Pro as part of our Black Friday sale, which is live now. You can sign up now for 50% off your first 3 months of Action Pro. And if you're a user of Action Pro, you get real-time alerts as soon as experts like Sean Kerner, Nick Giffen, Stuckey, Kyle, Grant, myself, if any of us track picks in the app, you'll have Action Pro. You don't have to wait to get those alerts. But if you don't have it, you'll have to wait 30 minutes before that happens. You might not get the best number or the best line for that. Also, you'll get real-time money percentages, see where the smart money is flowing, and you get access to our NFL player prop projections from Sean Kerner, which is super valuable. So this deal is going to be over soon. Go to actionnetwork.com/pro and sign up now for an annual subscription. All right, Nick. Let's talk Packers Lions, because you and I have been talking off air about this game, about the potential of passing. Where are you looking at? Because there were a lot of different angles we considered, but I think this might be the best one.
Yeah, I'm going to go Jared Goff over 32 and a half passing attempts widely available. There may be still a 31 and a half floating around. Definitely grab that if you can, but fine with 32 and a half for sure. In the last 3 games that the Detroit Lions have played, those have been their 3 highest pass rate over expectation games. And of course, that correlates perfectly with Dan Campbell overtaking the play calling duties. So they've just been super pass happy the last 3 games compared to what they have been the rest of the regular season. They've been pretty neutral in terms of pass rate over expectation over the last 3, but prior to that, they were around a 6 or 7% run heavy team compared to, the expected game script and things like that. So over those last 3 games, Jared Goff has averaged 37.3 pass attempts in regulation. Funny enough, he didn't even attempt to pass in the overtime game because Jahmyr Gibbs just ripped a 69-yard run to make it a very short Detroit drive in overtime. So 37.3 pass attempts in the last 3 games for Jared Goff. And that's despite them averaging, Detroit, just 27 and a half minutes of time of possession. I think they're going to have more time of possession against Green Bay here, because Green Bay allows the 6th lowest early down success rate and very low explosive play rate. So there's going to be a lot of 3rd and longs. And if Detroit's going to move the ball down the field, they're going to have to do it in chunks, or in smaller chunks rather than large chunks, because Green Bay is the #1 defense in preventing explosive plays. So I think this sets up perfectly for a Jared Goff over passing attempt spot.
Yeah, and we've talked about this with the Packers. Just they're limiting explosive plays both on the run and the pass. This is kind of, again, I don't want to say this now because he'll probably score a touchdown, but why I wasn't really too high on Jamison Williams this week, just because I thought from a deep ball standpoint, it was just the upside just wasn't there. But again, I do like this idea of like more short pass attempts, especially to like Amon-Ra St. Brown and others. So over 32 and a half pass attempts from Jared Goff. That's widely available. That's the first prop that Nick likes. Where are we going now?
Yeah, we're gonna go to the Patrick Mahomes game, but I'm not going to his side. I'm going to the Cowboys side. I'm gonna take the running back Javonte Williams to have under 16 and a half rushing attempts. Just like the Goff one, that's widely available at 16 and a half. There may still be a 17 and a half floating out there, but I'm fine with 16 and a half under here. If we look at Javonte's carries per game in his five, or I should say 6 wins plus tie, he has averaged 19.2 rushing attempts per game with a floor of 16, but in the 5 losses, averaging just 13.2 rushing attempts per game with a maximum of 15, meaning he has never cleared this 16 and a half line in any of their losses. And of course, Dallas is about a field goal underdog to the Chiefs here. So, if things hold up as the books expect, then this would be a loss, and we would lean towards the under 16 and a half, if not strongly consider the under here. Also, if you look at Dallas's 11 games, they have had 3 blowout wins. I don't think they're going to have a blowout win against Kansas City here. So in those other 8 games, if we just look at the other 8 games, whether it's a win or a loss, and just look at regulation, because there was 2 overtime games there. Javonte Williams, average of 14.6 carries, a median of 14 and a half carries in regulation in those 8 games that weren't Dallas blowout wins. He cleared 16 and a half just in 2 of those 8 and cleared 17 and a half if you got that higher number in just 1 of those 8 in regulation. So unless this goes to overtime, which, in a field goal game it could, but the point is very strongly leaning under here. Also, against Kansas City, you're going up against Patrick Mahomes, who could just engineer one of those 8 or 10-minute drives, or even 2 of those. And that kind of bit me in the butt last week when I went Josh Downs first quarter over receiving yards, and Mahomes just closed out the first quarter with an 8.5-minute drive. So, you always have to be careful when you're going up against Patrick Mahomes and looking at overs, because he could just chew up the whole clock, and Kansas City does rank 3rd in time of possession. So, I like the under here on Javonte Williams.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how that game plays out, because clearly both teams right now, I would say, are reeling, especially from a Chiefs standpoint, where, not to say that if they lose, they don't make the playoffs, but they got to start racking up some wins, right? So, and they got to win against the Colts. They need another one this week, but we got to take a vote now. So, Grant, Kyle, are we going to take Jared Goff to have 32 or more pass attempts, or are we going to take the under on Javonte Williams under 16 and a half rush attempts? So let's take a vote. All right, guys, I voted for Goff, because if I vote for Javonte, that implies that the Cowboys are going to lose. So what do we got? All right, Goff. All right, Goff. All right, good. All right, we don't have to vote for that Javonte prop, because that implies that Dallas is going to lose, and that would just hurt my heart a little more. Okay, so that is the 3rd prop now. So Jared Goff, it's actually over 32 and a half pass attempts, so a minimum of 33 pass attempts. That's going to be with Mark Andrews, 50+ receiving yards, along with Patrick Mahomes, over 21 and a half rushing yards. Those are the first 3 legs of this parlay. And now, of course, we got some touchdown props. I've got one from not the Cowboys, Chiefs, one from the Packers, and one from the Ravens. So let's start with the Packers. I'm going to go with Christian Watson. He's around plus 210 right now. 2 red zone targets and 2 end zone targets in 4 games since coming back. The Lions playing a lot of man coverage, 3rd highest rate. Probably going to be missing some guys in the secondary as well, both starting safety and starting cornerback. And again, a smaller sample, but over the last 2 seasons, Christian Watson has the higher targets per route run versus man since the start of last season. And again, we're dealing with him now where he's not actually having any injuries. One of the things about Christian Watson is over the last couple of years, you never really felt great about betting on his props, because the injury issues were always such a problem that you would just worry that you'd bet on him and he'd pull his hamstring within like a quarter. So, and the Lions, they've given up the second most touchdowns to wide receivers this year. So, and then the last time the Packers played a team that plays a lot of heavy man coverage, that would be the Giants. He scored twice. So that's the first pick that I like, Christian Watson. For the Ravens, we talked about how the Bengals stink against tight ends. So I'm going to take Isaiah Likely. He's around plus 220. Like anytime you're looking at touchdown props for the Bengals, I think the conversation always has to start with the tight end. But the issue right now, they know that with sports books, and Mark Andrews is around plus 110. So the value is pretty much gone at that point. But the Bengals, they've allowed the most touchdowns to tight ends this year. Tight end has scored in 5 of their last 6 games. And I think Isaiah Likely, this is the time that we want to bet him because he's kind of had a season from hell because he started off the season injured. Lamar Jackson then got hurt. He's finally back now. They're probably both going to be back on the same page. And when they've been on the same page, like over the last 2 seasons, he scored 5 or more touchdowns in each of the last 2 years. And now we're at 8 games so far this season. He has no touchdowns. So, with long story short, he's due, so we're going to go that way. But again, he's running the 3rd most routes on the team. So I think this is a good matchup where he can get his first touchdown of the year. So those are the 2 bets that I like. We're either going to have to take a vote, guys, on Christian Watson for an anytime touchdown against that Lions secondary, or we're going to take Isaiah Likely to get his first touchdown of the year against the Bengals. So let's take a vote. All right, guys, how are we rounding up this parlay? We're going to take Christian Watson or are we going to take Isaiah Likely? What do we got? Watson. Oh, a likely pick. Grant, is it just because we're doing full fade of the Bengals against tight ends? Is that why we voted for him, or is it just because you don't really like Watson that much? I just want to hear your thoughts on Isaiah Likely.
I mean, I took Likely for a touchdown. I mean, again, it's the Bengals are so bad versus tight ends. This is going to likely be a high scoring game. So I mean, I already laddered Mark Andrews. I have Likely for a touchdown, and I'm not going to be surprised if I talk myself into a nice little Likely ladder up to 100 yards, just because it could be a massive day for the tight ends in an offense that likes to use tight ends going up against Stevens that has no idea what a tight end is and doesn't cover them at all.
Well, I was going to say, like, you could even triple down and take like Charlie Kohler or something like that. Like, try to see what his odds are right now. They're like plus 650, plus 700 if you wanted to go full tight end fade of the Bengals here. But so that is the parlay, though. We are going to take Christian Watson to round out this parlay. So let's go over it here. So we've got Patrick Mahomes over 21.5 rushing yards. Mark Andrews on an alt, but it's 50 plus receiving yards. Jared Goff to have at least 33 pass attempts, and rounded that out with a Christian Watson anytime touchdown. Right now, those parlay odds around plus 2,300 at Bet365, plus 2,100 at DraftKings. Kyle, what do you think of this parlay is from a correlation standpoint? Obviously, they're different games, so correlating standpoint probably won't play into a part here. But just looking at these 4 props, how do you think they stack up?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, spread out amongst 3 games compared to our normal showdown slate. But I think Goff and Watson, those guys can certainly correlate. Obviously, if Watson scores, that would put the Lions in more position to have to throw it, and then vice versa. If the Lions are having a lot of success on these sustained drives, might have to play a little bit of catch up for the Packers. I kind of like all the picks across the board. Never feel great when a guy like Nick, who I respect so much, is on the opposite of my pick, but it also makes it a little bit more exciting. So we'll see how it shakes out. But I think we got a good card here.
Well, then I was even going to say, Nick, maybe what we need to do is we need to round robin all 8. That's what I'm thinking. At least just a parlay of all 8, but then we round robin all 8. And then maybe that way, if the Mahomes one doesn't come through, we're still feeling pretty good. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, I mean it's a little weird because when you have same game parlay types, you can't do the full round robin or anything like that, but you can round robin the SGPs on some books. So yeah, I mean I think that works for sure. I'll probably just do the 7 of the 8, but if you like the Mahomes over, do all 8. I think that's certainly going to make for a fun Thanksgiving. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Well, and full disclosure, I love his touchdown prop. I took it at plus 450. So anyway, it doesn't matter. But that's all for us today. I want to thank everybody for joining us for Thanksgiving edition of Action Island. Also, friendly reminder, join the Action Network Discord because we're going to be doing Bet What Happens live for every Thanksgiving game at halftime. Nick will be going through the slate at halftime, finding the best edges and the best props to bet in those games. And also, we're going to be back on the island on Monday. We're going to wrap up Week 13 with the New York Giants and New England Patriots. And spoiler alert, it may or may not be a luck rankings matchup. So on behalf of Nick Giffen, Grant Neiffer, Kyle Murray, I am Gilles Gallant. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Aloha and bon chance.